Put a finger down if you've ever taken a DNA test with your much older cousins just for the fun of it, and your whole world got flipped upside down because your dad wasn't really your dad, but he was dead, so you couldn't ask him any questions. Your mom didn't want to answer your questions, and now she's the other dad in prison, and you found out that your husband's ex-wife could possibly be your sister or a very close family member, and that would make your children cousins, sisters, brothers. I have some cousins on my dad's side who are a lot older than me. They're his age. So I'm 34. They'd be in their 60s by now. There was no suspicions about paternity whenever I did this. They were just doing DNA tests with all the cousins that they could contact. They wanted to grow their family tree and learn more about their side of the family. So they emailed me and I agreed. We used family tree DNA. I just did the cheek swab and then sent it in. And I remember making a joke to my siblings saying, you know what, I bet you my dad really isn't my dad. Because there's 4 of us and we all have different dads, so it really wouldn't have been that surprising. We also had multiple stepdads, so it was just one of those things that we laughed about to keep from crying, I guess, to make jokes about our messed up life. So the results come back and I did not match any of the cousins who had also taken that test. When my uncle and my dad were little, my grandparents had a big fight about the way they looked because one looked a lot like somebody else, a different dad. I don't know if they ever figured that out. Apparently my uncle is a lot darker than what my grandfather thought he should be. They're all Caucasian. So I guess that then brought up the question as if any of my grandmother's children belonged to my grandfather. So what we decided to do was ask my grandma to take a DNA test. I did not tell her that I was suspected that my dad really wasn't my dad because I think that really would have broken her heart. I was her baby. But when we went to visit her, I just told her that since she was the oldest living family member, that I wanted to get a DNA test on her just so that we could do our family tree. She did it, and we waited for those results to come back, and she and I did not match. So then started my questions to my mom. She was not happy about that. She lied so bad and they said that I was being scammed by that DNA test, which I guess I can understand if you know, almost 30 years later, you thought you got away with something and then boom, here comes all these questions. But I wasn't mad. I wasn't mean about it. I was just like, hey, so by the way, I did a DNA test and, you know, not my dad. So who is it? She wasn't budging. So I had to go and investigate on my own. I even got to the point where I was like, well, maybe, like, am I adopted or something? Am I not your kid? So I was just like trying to pick and get answers from her. I still kept asking my mom just because I wanted to know from her. I didn't want to have to just find this out through a DNA test. I wanted to know her story. I wanted to know what was going on. I told her, I'm not mad at you. I just want to know. And she got mad and she was like, why do you even care? Why do you want to know so bad? She told me it wasn't my business. I was like, excuse me, ma'am. It is my business to know who my father is and if I have any more siblings or anything like that. She was fiery mad and she finally just said, I don't know. It was some guy in a white truck. She told me that she worked at a bar and she was I guess a bartender / waitress, and my dad that I thought was my dad the whole time was a bouncer, and they had broken up, and I guess to get revenge on him for whatever she was mad at him about, she messed around with some other people. So she found out she was pregnant, and it was just easier for her to pin me on who I thought was my dad. So after losing communication with both my brothers and my grandpa, I kept in contact with my uncle, and I had a few other people reach out that were close matches, but not super close. They asked me different questions about my parents and where I was from and all that. So then I moved on to find out if I was related to my husband's ex-wife. So she thought it was kind of weird, and she did agree to take a DNA test. She had asked her mom if she knew anything about this, or maybe that her father had other children or nieces or anything like that, if I could be related to them, and her mom didn't really know. And later on, something was said to the effect of her father might not actually be her father. So, of course, then she became curious and did the DNA test with me. So I was just extremely nervous and nauseous about the whole situation. It would have been humiliating for one. Other than that, our kids would have ended up being both siblings and cousins. I was pretty convinced that she was either going to be my sister or my cousin. So we waited on those results, and it felt like it took a lifetime. It finally came back, and there was no match whatsoever. Thank God.
Wow, I must admit this is quite a wild, just a weird story, because it's just, she's basically describing the unthinkable, a person's worst nightmare. Imagine finding out that your dad that you've grown up with all this time isn't actually your dad. Like, that is like literally heartbreaking stuff. And to actually find that out, I would just be broken in all pieces, because it's like your life's been a lie this whole time. And then obviously now, coming for this DNA test, I bet this woman's really, really glad that she's actually gone and got herself a DNA test, because otherwise, without it, who knows, she might still be living this lie that she has been for the past 34 years, which, by all means is a very, very long time. But, regardless of that, there's also her ex-husband and his sister. There's a possible correlation there, because they both share the same last name. Coincidence? I think not. But imagine finding out that, like, your ex, is your ex now, which is obviously a good thing, because it would be even more tension, I guess. But imagine finding out your ex-husband's sister could possibly be in relation to you in some way, which means the children and all your cousins, the whole family tree just literally swaps like this. Like, everything just flips on its head. But it's also interesting to note about her mom. Now, her mom, when she approached her mom about getting into DNA tests and wanting to uncover some actual truthful facts instead of keeping lied to all this time, and while seeking that, her mom was literally not willing to give her any sort of gossip or information whatsoever. She was very tightly lipped on the situation, which obviously isn't a good sign, because it definitely gives off those connotations that something's definitely bubbling in the pot. And the fact that she went back to her mom for a second time, it shows that she just wanted the truth, and she didn't care if the truth was bad. She just wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth. And the only thing I think she recalled saying was that, something about, no, he's not your dad, or, your dad was in prison. And it's like, but I just don't get why it was kept a secret this whole time. Like, for me, it makes no sense. I want to know who my family are, no matter what they could have done in the past. And, to actually speculate that your ex-husband's wife could be your sister is just like taking it to boundaries that you wouldn't have even wanted to touch or close, because it just creates just tension, I guess, all around the family. So it's just not great. But I'm sure that she will be able to pick her life back up and pick up all the pieces and stick and glue them all back together, and she can actually move on with her life, knowing her true family history.